Hi there, it's Cheryl. Are you ready for some spooky fun? We're going to make a card for Halloween with hovering bats. Look at them. Isn't this fun? So they just kind of hover above the card. Got spooky on the front, just in case you didn't know it was spooky. And these lovely little spooky clouds going across the big old full moon. And on the inside, I printed out, on my printer, I picked a font that looked kind of spooky and Halloweenish, and printed out, "Wishing you a night full of frights and a bag full of delights. Happy Halloween." So let's get started on the card. This is really fun. Bats are kind of the butterflies of Halloween, so it just naturally occurred to me we needed some hovering bats on the cards. So we'll need a piece of Night of Navy, and this is 10 by 7. We're making a 5 by 7 card. You could scale that down if you want and make it a 4 by 7. I wanted a nice big card. I have a piece of basic gray, and you need a piece that's about 3.5 or 2.5 by 2.5, and that we're going to stamp our bats in the Tuxedo black ink on this basic gray card. We need a piece of Whisper White that's 6 by 4. That's for our front, and we're going to be sponging that. A piece of basic black that's 6 1/4 by 4 1/4. That gives us a nice little narrow border on the front. And then on the inside of the card, after I printed this out, I cut it out to be 6 1/2 by 4 1/2. That would be for the inside. I used the next to the smallest of these labels from Labels 4 as a Spellbinders die set. And from the Layering Circles Framelits dies, I used the largest circle to cut a moon. This is our mask to do our blending around, and this is just cut from printer paper, any thin paper, and I put a little bit of repositionable tape on the back of that. So that was from the largest circle from the Framelits dies. And I'll be using the stamp set from Spooky Sweets, and we're going to modify Spooky Sweets for our little label on the front. And our bats are there, and our spooky clouds to go across the moon. Let's see, what else do we need? We need a sponge. I like to use the makeup sponges for my blending. I have a little piece of painter's tape. You use masking tape also. I have a black marker, my Tombow glue, my designer's Dries clear glue. Oh, and from acetate or the window sheets, I cut a 1/4 inch strip and then cut that into about 1.5 inch sections. I have them already folded. I fold it down each of the ends about 1/4 inch. You don't have to be real precise about that, but they're folded down about 1/4 inch on each end. And I have them taped together so I don't lose them. That's the big thing. We don't want to lose them. The inks we'll be using are Blueberry Bushel, Night of Navy, and then the Memento black ink. So let's see, what should we do first? Oh, first I want to show you the bats. Now, I don't know if you can see that on the video, but they're not totally black. They're, I don't know, it's supposed to be like a country look, I guess. But I wanted my bats black, so I just filled in. I didn't take out these little lines, but I just went with my black Stampin' Right marker and blackened up all of the black parts. And then these are going to get fussy cut. So I did that on those. So just any place there's these little sections, I just filled in with my Stampin' Right marker to make it good and black. Okay, so I'm gonna put these aside because I'll be going away and fussy cut those out. But let's do the blending on the front here. And we'll also, let's see, I need a little piece of Whisper White here too. I'm going to stamp my spooky and show you how I did that. Let me do that first before I make a big mess here. So let's see, there's my little Spooky Sweets stamp. And I'm going to take my little piece of tape here and cover up the sweets part. And I'm just going to take my fingernail, I'm going to just poke down all around that sweets part so it leaves the spooky part exposed. I use my Memento black ink. Ink that up. And I'm going to carefully pull my tape off and stamp it. Okay, so there we've got our spooky. And I'll be cutting that out. Also, when I go away to fussy cut my bats, I'll also die cut this. So let me put that with the bats. Okay, now let's get our piece of Whisper White back in here. So we're going to put our full moon, and we don't want it perfectly centered. I put it, let's see, about 1 inch from the side and about 3/8 of an inch from the top. You don't have to be real precise about that. I'll start out with my blueberry bushel. And my makeup sponge. I'm so used to saying stampin' everything, I was going to call it a stampin' sponge. And just start adding some of this blueberry bushel in there, and you don't want it to be, you do not want it to be totally covered. Look, see how I have that? So it's kind of wispy. And I come in from this side. Oop. And here we go. Okay, so now that's done. This is like the easiest blending ever because you don't want it real solid covered. Now move on to my Night of Navy. I'm just using that same sponge because we're going to a darker color now. And come in with Night of Navy. And I want my corners and around the edges to be a little darker. So just keep building up there, layering that on. And we can come in here a little bit with that Night of Navy over the blueberry bushel. Keep flipping that one little end there, edge of that moon up. I hope it's okay. We want that good and dark around the edges and the corners here. Okay, so that looks pretty good, I think. And maybe just a little, I just don't want that just white there. So now, same sponge. I'm going to go to my Memento black, my Tuxedo black ink. So I'm making a nice mess of my nails. That does eventually wear off. And you notice I dab my sponge out. That gets it worked down into the sponge a little bit, so there's no like big gloppy areas of ink that are just sitting on the top of the sponge. And that will help you with your blending. So now we go in with our black just around the edges here and in on the corners a bit. And maybe just a little bit coming in here. Okay, so now we've got a nice spooky sky. And we've got our black ink out, so I'm going to add my clouds. I'll ink that cloud stamp up with my Memento Tuxedo black ink. And take my paper off. And I'm going to put one cloud coming in down here. Like this. And there's my one cloud. And I'll come up here and have another cloud. Now you notice I turned that around so it looks a little different. And I have another cloud coming in up here. And there's our card front. Look at that. Isn't that the coolest? Okay. So now I'm going to go away. I'm going to cut out my spooky, and I'm going to finish blackening in my bats, my Halloween butterflies, and I'll clean this mess up here, and we'll get on with the card. Okay, it's time to put our spooky card together. And I've got my bats all cut out, and I have my little bits of, I don't know if you can see those. I guess you can a little bit, but that's what they're shaped like. We're going to glue those onto the bats. So we'll turn them all over. And I'll use my designer's Dries clear glue. Just put a little glue on there. And I'm going to place them on the bats with the folded part towards the bat's head. And this will dry perfectly clear. And you won't even be able to see the glue. Now this might be a little bit, your little end tabs might be a little bit bigger than the bats. So when these are totally dry, you could trim that off if you like. But you want to wait until it's dry all the way. I'm going to just continue on with the video. And I'm not going to trim it on the video, but I did do that on my original card. Okay, so we've got all of our bats. Have their little flying jiggler type things. Okay, on my spooky, I want an exclamation point after it, so I'm going to use my marker. And I've already die cut this out. That's the second to the smallest die from the label set, and I'm going to put an exclamation point on there. And while these are drying up, I'll put them aside a little bit there, and we'll put the rest of the card together. We're almost done. So I'll use my Tombow. This is the part that goes on the inside. We'll open this up. And center that on the inside. I think this is such a fun card. And then we'll do the same with our black. That's our basic black cardstock. Put that on the front. And center that. And our spooky sky will go next. Oh, I think I'm going to pop up my little spooky label on this one. I didn't do that on my original. But I think that might be fun. Not like we don't have enough dimension with the backs, right? But just let me get a couple of Stampin Dimensionals. These are one of those things that are always on my table. My glues and my tapes and my dimensionals, they're always out on my table. And we'll put that at a nice little angle down here in the corner. And now these are dry enough that we can glue them on. We'll just put a little bit of the designer's Dries clear on the other little folded part there. You can put them pretty much anywhere you want. Just remember that if you're going to mail the card, when they fold down, you don't want them going off the edge of the card. Well, if you're going to put it in an envelope of any kind. The dry is clear on this one. Let's see, I think I'll put this one right here. And our last one. Down here. Let's see, how do I want it? Like that? That looks good. And there we go. Our card is complete. So I hope you've liked this video. If you have, then be sure to hit the like button down below. If you have any questions or comments, you can do that down there also. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, be sure to hit the subscribe button. And then you'll know when I post new ones. If there are any Stampin' Up! Products that you'd like to purchase that I've used in this video, you can do that. It's very easy. Go to my blog or my Facebook page. That's listed down there. And there's a shop button on either one of those pages. It'll take you right to Stampin' Up! And you'll be all set up with me as your demonstrator. And that's about it. So y'all have a spooky Halloween. Take care, stay safe, and happy stamping.